Okay, that's 7 p.m. in the UK. I'm not sure where everyone else is in the world. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock the chat. So the chat's available again. Hopefully, if anyone else joins, they can behave. But welcome to the community's first ever group call. The first thing to say is, again, I'm recording this call, so hopefully that's okay. I had a lot of messages from coaches who cannot make the presentation this evening because they are at training. The second thing I'm going to say is I'm going to whiz through this presentation because I'm aware that a lot of people want to go and watch Manchester United and Spurs. So my name is Kevin Middleton. We'll come back to me in a second. But today's call is the first in a series of monthly calls that will be on a variety of topics. And today's topic decided to start a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It's about the myths around youth football that I have experienced and I see every day online. It's called The Secret Sauce. There is no secret sauce. And maybe as a coaching community, we need to stop acting like there is. I'll also challenge some of the myths that are out there, some of the myths that I see online every day. I'll say why they are myths and what I think the truth is. But future calls will feature guests. We'll go in depth on specific football topics that I think the community will be interested in. And if you do have a topic you'd be interested in hearing about, then please do get in touch. Right, moving on, the obligatory about me slide that's in every presentation. As I said, my name is Kevin Middleton. I've been working and coaching now at different levels for about 15 years. I don't think there's anything special about me or my coaching or my journey. And before you leave the call, I just think that I've worked with a variety of players at different ages, different stages, different genders. And it's given me a really good exposure to what players and coaches experience day in, day out at different levels of the game. And I started at grassroots football like many people do. I was helping my son's football teams out. And then I started my own on-pitch program called 360 TFT. I grew that to 300 plus players playing twice a week with the program. That briefly led me into academy football. And then after that, I joined a community trust, a community foundation, a charity foundation that's football based. And I was the football development officer there. And I helped grow that to 500 plus players playing multiple times a week on the grass with us. And my work there was recognised by the local professional club, Arbroath Football Club. I moved into the professional game working with first team players for about 2.5 years. After I left the club, I actually stayed with the club because I moved into the female side of the game with Arbroath FC Women. And then laterally, I've moved on to Hamilton FC Women, where we just won SWPL 2. We had a nice title party last week, and we've just been promoted to the top league in Scotland. So I've got a lot of experience as a coach, manager, assistant manager, business owner at different levels of the game. And I think I've worked with over maybe 1,000, 1,500 players now in my career, possibly more. But most importantly, I've worked at different levels, different clubs, different coaches, and I have that different experience. And do you know what? The thing I'm most proud of in football is my online community. And I started it because I just felt like there's a lot of noise in football at the moment. There's a lot of content on social media that's posted. But unless you save that content at the point of seeing it, finding it again is a bit of a nightmare. It's really disconnected as well. It's just a series of random drills that are posted. And right now, I think one of the biggest problems in youth football is the rise of the disconnected training plans. We as coaches mean well, we'll grab these plans, we'll download them, we'll tweak a few sessions within them, and then we'll hope that they fit our players. But far too often, there's no clear thread that connects one session to the next session. So I just wanted to bring everything together in one place into my online community. That's sessions, apps, resources. Everything is in one place for coaches to find. And if you need help, then hopefully you'll find something in the community to help you make your life easier and help coach your players and make their life a lot easier as well. And the community itself isn't perfect. I'd love to get more experienced coaches involved to make it even better. So if you think you can help, then please do get in touch. I'm open for any offers of help, whether it's content or advice or whatever. Right, okay, moving on to the purpose of today. And just a a really small disclaimer before we start. The following slides are my opinion, and they're my opinion only. If I say anything that chimes with you, then no offense meant, so please, no offense should be taken. It's all my opinion. Feel free to add your opinion via the chat, especially if you disagree. I certainly don't know everything, and I don't act like I know everything. I don't have a closed mindset, so please feel free to add any helpful comments via the chat so we can all learn. Right, with that in mind, let's get started. So, a nice, easy myth to start. Youth football is professional football. Now, I've put this as a myth because I still think some coaches hold this belief, or at least they act like they do. But youth football is not a mini version of the Premier League, and it certainly shouldn't be treated like one. You know, kids are not professional in waiting, they're learners in development. And for me, copying pro-level tactics, even structures within professional clubs, or even adding pressure to young players completely misses the point of child-centered development. If coaches overcomplicate sessions, they chase tactical sophistication instead of foundational skills, then they will shortchange player development to the detriment of the player. And in those scenarios, training becomes about performance and not about learning. It becomes about how someone performs in the here and now, and not long-term development. And for me, youth football is really simple. It should prioritize joy. It should prioritize skill acquisition. It should prioritize freedom to make mistakes so they can learn from them. And it should prioritize developmentally appropriate challenges that stretch players, help them grow as players, and most importantly, as people. And it should help build integrity and identity and decision making. It shouldn't fix them into rigid roles so they can fit a system or win a game of football. It shouldn't be about the coach's ego, and it should not be about stacking the trophy cabinet. Because at the end of the day, we're not Guardiola, we'll never be Guardiola, and the players we coach are not Haaland, and they'll never be Erling Haaland. So youth football isn't preparation for pro football. I wish we would stop acting like it is. It's preparation for a life of football and a life with football, in my opinion. So nice, easy one to start. And leading on from that, which segues in really nicely, my myth number 2 is that success in youth football is when a player graduates to academy football. I've seen this one a lot online. I've experienced it so much in person as well. So many coaches and parents see academy selection as the ultimate goal in youth football. And a lot of grassroots coaches think that they are successful when they have players leave their team to go and play for an academy. I think a lot of coaches think that coaching in an academy is the top of the football tree as well. That's the pinnacle of their career when they make it to academy football. And I think it's easy to get sucked into how good academy football actually is. The pictures you see on the screen right now are from Wolves' academy. I've been fortunate to visit a number of academies, and I was down in Wolves a couple of years ago. And I mean, look at the pictures. Who wouldn't want to work there? Who wouldn't want to play there? The facility is amazing. You're right next door to the first team. So I'm not criticizing any player or any coach who wants to go to that level. But is the definition of success at grassroots level or youth football level if a player or a coach makes it to this level? I'm not so sure. But for me, it's not. Because we all dream of developing footballers who go on to play in the Champions League or represent their country at the World Cup. But for most coaches, I don't think that's the reality. And you can see on my screen at the moment that academy football is really, really difficult to get out of. Only a tiny percentage of academy players make it to a professional level. So defining success by that narrow, high-pressure funnel that is academy entry is difficult. You can see here 97% of Premier League academy players never play a minute in the top flight, and 70% of those don't even get a contract at any Premier League or English Football League club. And 1.5 million boys who play organised youth football in England, only 180 of those will be signed professionally by a Premier League club. And even worse, there was an article that I think it was the Training Ground Guru released this a few years back. Over 70% of released players are not offered enough support. Now, again, just to clarify, I'm not saying that the experience of academy football is a bad one or they're bad places to work. Most have really, really improved their player care procedures and their release procedures in recent years. But if getting to that level is the measure of success, then it's a bit of a Pyrrhic victory for me. It creates pressure to win early, it creates pressure to perform, and it creates pressure to impress scouts. Now, some players and some parents thrive on that. But for me, youth football should be about learning, experimenting, and growing. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in an academy, but to get selected, you have to be of a level, I think, to get selected. And I can only find statistics on English football. And I'm not sure what the academy system is like where you live. It might be much more productive than these statistics. There are absolutely fantastic research papers online about this subject. But I feel that when you have 1.5 million football players, it's a pretty good sample size. And of those 1.5 million, only 0.012% play a single minute in the English Premier League. So something's wrong with academy football in general, never mind the context that I'm talking about. So for me, academy football is great. I'm not knocking it, so apologies if it's coming across that way. But for me, it's definitely not the definition of success if a player gets picked up by an academy. And I think the evidence on the screen backs me up a little bit, even if I am confusing cause and effect that tiny little bit. So if I think that's a myth, what should constitute success for coaches at the grassroots level? Well, for me, it's really, really simple. As a youth coach, your job should be to keep football players in the game for as long as possible, whether that's if they go on to play, whether that's if they go on to coach, whether that's if they go on to be an official. Keeping them in the sport is the win. You know, football has so much to give, but too many kids are walking away from it far too soon, in my opinion. And most references online cite that between 70 and 75% of players quit football or even sport by the time they hit their teenage years. You can see it on the screen here. You know, 75% of youth soccer players abandon the game at 13. Girls are 3 times more likely to quit football than boys. And it goes on and on and on. And, you know, reading all these stats out just kind of reminds me of a quote by the ex-Aberdeen manager, Ebbe Skovdahl. He said, statistics are like miniskirts. They give you good ideas, but they hide the most important things. But the stats that I've presented so far are quite startling. So, you know, what's causing this drop-off? And there are loads of theories. You can read them all online. They're all over social media, and I have my own. We don't have time to go into them today. It might be a topic for the future. But I know that if we don't change the current state of play, we don't change the current success factors, then we won't get the Frank Fosters of the world, the oldest referee in the world on the left-hand side there. We won't get the walking footballers of the future. That's the guys on the right-hand side there with the trophy who were representing Scotland down in England and won a trophy. And we won't get the coaches of the future, which is the bottom picture. I'm in there, but there's the chap in the middle. He's 71 years old and he's still coaching at a really, really good level. They just won't be there in the future. Because these days, you know, football has so much competition in terms of Xboxes, YouTube, social media, and things like that. Kids don't need to play football anymore to be entertained. They can do something else to get their entertainment. So success in youth football, for me, it's not when a player goes to academy level. It's when players still love the game at 18 and they're much better for having played it. And we need to make football development consistent. We need to make it clear. We need to make it fun. We need to make it enjoyable. Graduation to an academy or to professional football, they're the cherry on top. They are not the whole cake, in my opinion. So just moving on, myth 3. I see this on social media a lot, or a variation of it. I walked past a session and this coach was useless. This coach was doing an 11v2 rondo, or this coach had players standing in line waiting for their turn. And when I read those messages, the only thing that I hear in my head is, AKA, I am good at criticizing other coaches, but will offer no help. Now, I'm not saying an 11v2 rondo is good. I'm not saying standing in line is good. I'm saying that judging a coach from 5 seconds of observation is misleading. You don't know what the session objectives were. You don't know where the players in that session are in their learning journey. You don't know what happened before the moment you saw or after the moment you saw. Coaching is not about looking good from a distance. It's about what players take away over time, in my opinion. And the myth that some coaches are useless actually really, really annoys me more than anything. And if we just break down a new coach's journey, and again, this is my experience of a new coach's journey, yours might be different. Usually a new coach is a volunteer or someone who's just starting. Their son or their daughter have joined a team and that team need helpers. So the parent will step in. They'll be told it only takes a few hours a week of their time. And I've said that with my tongue firmly in my cheek again, because it never ever just is a few hours a week. And in Scotland, which I don't think is too different from elsewhere, they'll be sent for the level 1 qualification, which is 23 hours of practical and on-pitch learning. And sometimes the on-pitch learning is even skipped because the course is done online, purely online. They then return to their clubs as a fully qualified coach and ready to go. And when they're at their clubs, they're given some documents to help them, but those documents are codes of conducts, they are health and safety policies, and there are other really, really important documents like that. And in rare cases, they'll be given the document on the right-hand side, which is a game model document or a curriculum framework, but that's the document they really need. And they really need that document backed up with continuous coach education from their association and from their club. That document should be linked to what the associations are teaching as well, because that will provide clarity, it will provide consistency, and it will all be linked to a framework or a game model. And this is vital, because how can they pass on that clarity and consistency to their players when they're coaching them if they don't have it themselves? That will help maximize the player experience. That will help keep players in football for a long time. However, time's a threat, and it's not an opportunity for most clubs and organizations. Again, they're either run by volunteers or there's a director of coaching there who's overburdened with admin tasks, and he or she can't see the wood for the trees. Again, not all clubs, it's not a criticism of clubs, but most clubs that I've visited and been to, they are living this experience and they need help as much as coaches do. But for me, online criticism of other coaches doesn't help anyone. It just fosters a toxic coaching culture of judgment and not support. It discourages experimentation, especially in younger or less confident coaches, and it makes coaching about performing for peers rather than learning for players. Because at the end of the day, I see it all the time online. We as a coaching cohort, we preach about creating creative players, for letting players have that little bit of freedom, to let them make mistakes, to help them grow, to avoid joystick coaching, to avoid painting by numbers. But then we criticize other coaches for not conforming and for making mistakes. So in my opinion, if we want better coaches, we need to have better conversations, because critique without care is just ego in disguise. So for me, coaches aren't useless, they just need help. And a lot of experienced coaches have made hundreds, thousands of mistakes and went through a lot of pain before we could even try and call ourselves competent. So instead of criticizing other coaches, if we can help them so they don't make as many mistakes as we did or have to go through as much pain as we did, then I think we'll all get on a lot better. Myth number 4, everyone who leads a session is a coach. I don't think that's true. I think some adults who lead sessions are facilitators. So not everyone who's leading the session is coaching in the truest sense. A coach doesn't just set up cones and blow whistle. They shape learning, they manage behaviors, they build relationships, they ask questions, they challenge thinking, they help their players. And a facilitator delivers activities while that coach is delivering learning. And being a facilitator is absolutely fine. Facilitators that I describe, they give the kids a chance to play and learn via the game, and the environment they create may be the one that suits them and their players at that time. Because I've seen this in person, poor coaching advice, even with good intentions, can confuse players, it can help build bad habits, and it can stifle learning. It can do harm. And when facilitators sort of stay within their skill set, and they know that they're at that stage of coaching, or that stage of being a coach rather, they'll avoid that misinformation, they'll avoid guesswork, because in my experience, guesswork coaching can do more harm than absolutely no coaching at all. And I know one club who just play this game over and over again without that much coaching intervention. It's absolutely fine for them. They have good players who have a good technical base, so they can let the players use that technical base to go and discover and explore the game on their own. But at a lower level or a different level, running this kind of session on repeat without context or coaching points may not teach the players at all. And because coaching is an intentional act, it's knowing what to say, when to step in, how to say it, how to stretch players, how to support them. And I think great coaching involves clear objectives, a goal. It involves meaningful feedback, and it involves learning moments built into every activity. So not every adult in a tracksuit is a coach, and that's okay, because I think it's on everyone else and associations to help train them and support them as they grow. So they get to a stage where they know the objectives of the session, where they can think in advance where the session might break down, and they can think in advance the interventions, the coach prompts they need to maybe step in and use to facilitate learning. And that's the real gold dust when you're coaching a session. So for me, facilitators run sessions, coaches shape development, and both are perfectly okay. I have been a facilitator at one point in my journey. You don't just go from zero to being a coach that shapes development overnight. So both are perfectly okay. Okay, myth number 5, another one that really grinds my gears. The dogma around opposed versus unopposed training is productive. And the debate on this subject online has become tribal. Some coaches are either 100% game-based, or some coaches are, they're technical based with unopposed training. There's no middle ground with these people. It's gotten to crazy levels of dogma and fixed mindset, in my opinion. And in reality, in my experience, both have value. It's not either or, it's when, how, and why. So for me, the question shouldn't be opposed or unopposed. It should be, what does this player or what does my team need in this moment? And the debate is often framed as one method being right and the other being wrong, when in reality, I think each has its place and each has its limitations, at least in my experience anyway. And, my experience is that players cannot survive the chaos of football without clarity, without having the tools in their toolbox to escape pressure and get out of trouble. So they can't compete in game scenarios effectively and within context without understanding the what, where, why, when, and how. And those factors, I think, can be learned from unopposed exercises. Sometimes unopposed provides it's a far less messy visual of how a situation will look on the field. I'll give you an example. If we were to break down the type of technique and movement required to play an up back through, then that might be a lot easier with an unopposed exercise rather than an opposed exercise. If it's unopposed, players can practice the technique and the movement required potentially hundreds of times in a short space of time as well, versus maybe one or none if they're just stuck into a game scenario. But there is a limitation to unopposed exercises. If you don't take that unopposed learning into an opposed situation, the odds of transferring that technique to the game are extremely low. So you have to take unopposed training into a opposed situation. There has to be a bit of both, in my opinion. But unopposed exercises are fantastic for introducing new skills. They're fantastic for building confidence, and they're fantastic for refining technique under low or no pressure. Players need to master the ball, for example, in the early phases of development, and asking them to do that under pressure in a game scenario will just see them revert to what they know instead of what you are telling them they should know. Because, when children are learning maths in a classroom, they don't jump to the chaos and the pressure of PhD level maths straight away. They master the basics and they apply those basics in more and more challenging and stressful ways, like tests and exams, so they can grow and they can learn and they can move on to much harder concepts. And even at the adult level, we do the unopposed to opposed mix. It's a little different to the youth level because we'll come up with a game plan for our upcoming match. That's the left-hand side. You can see there in this scenario, we're looking for a fullback to switch the play in behind or up to the top end of the pitch. We'll implement an unopposed passing pattern, which is the exercise on the right-hand side. This is so we can refine the technique, we can refine the runs that are required, and we can let players get the repetition in before they move into something more opposed to practice it in that challenging situation. And when it comes to the Sunday and 3 points matter, that's when it pays dividends. And you can see this in evidence here. Kira passes to Abby, and Abby immediately looks up in 2 touches, does the switch of play. Chloe flicks it on, and Mel knows what type of run to make in order to score. And this is when it really matters for 3 points. So that's a mix of opposed and unopposed training that's given that. Because at the end of the day, rather than coaches feeling the pressure to perform to a philosophy and to a need, it should be about balance. It should be about using all the tools at your disposal. Because if you intersect the unopposed and opposed exercises through progressions, constraints, well scaffolded session design, it can be a really, really useful learning approach for players of all ages. Because it's not about the drill type, it's not about the type of exercise you do, it's about the learning, it's about choosing the right tool for the right moment for your players. And I don't think it's about appeasing the loudest voice in the room's opinion on what you're doing. Because your players, your environment needs are yours, and you need to do what's best for your players. And if you do what's best for them, then I think that beats any dogma or any fixed views on football. Okay, number 6, the last few are quite short, but the research says, and this one again really, really bothers me because it just translates to research and statistics are the whole truth. You know, I see this online all the time. Someone will inevitably comment on something I put on Twitter saying, but the research says this kind of learning is correct, or this methodology is correct, or this approach is correct. And I work in universities for my day job. I know how important research is, and it is important, but it's not the whole picture. You know, studies are often done in controlled environments. They're not done at chaotic grassroots sessions with 8-year-olds who've been in school all day and had a snack filled with sugar on their way to football training. And they're not done at a session with dogs running around the pitch and parents standing there judging the coach. Data gives us clues, it does not give us commandments. Context matters. So does coaching experience, judgment, and feel, in my opinion. But I feel like some coaches have become paralyzed by theory. They're constantly looking for what the research says instead of what their players need. And some are spending more time in PDFs and in labs than on pitches. So in my experience, there's an over-reliance on stats and studies, which is creating a rigid way of thinking. It's creating a disconnect from reality. And this is the best lab, this is the best environment you can be in. Nothing beats being on the grass. Not the echo chamber that is Twitter, not research papers, just coaching. Now, I'm not dismissing research. I've used it loads in this presentation already, but it should be used to inform and not dictate, in my opinion. It should be used to test ideas with your players, to reflect, to adjust. And it should be recognized that I feel that coaching is part art and it's part science. And sometimes the answer isn't in a paper or a study, it's actually in your session itself. And a lot of the times, research is made to look silly and it's made to look outdated. It can actually get in the bin sometimes, because it used to be claimed that early specialization in a sport would guarantee, or at least try and guarantee, elite performance. Now we think that early specialization in one sport can lead to overuse injuries, can lead to burnout, it can lead to reduced overall athletic development. We now think that diversified sports participation, playing different sports in youth, is linked to better long-term performance and reduced injury risk. We used to think that player VO2 max levels were the ultimate performance indicator for physical performance, and now we don't. We used to think that creativity couldn't be coached. Now we know that coaching behaviors such as encouraging autonomy and providing diverse challenges to players can enhance creativity among football players. And a coach's qualification and experience has nothing to do with those factors. It's just about the type of coach that person is, and it's about their character. And I could go on and on and on about studies that have been done in the past which are no longer true. So for me, knowledge lives in research, wisdom lives on the pitch, and we should not confuse one for the other. Okay, next myth. Again, something I've seen very, very often. The best players at age 6, 7, and 8 are the best players at 12, 13, and 14. That's not the case. And how many times have we stood on the side of a pitch and a coach has pointed at a 7-year-old and said he's going to play for Scotland, or he's going to play for England, or he's going to play in the Champions League? I've lost count. I don't know how many it is for the rest of the audience, but I've lost count. And I found this image online. It's from FIFA, the game, and it's the Real Madrid youth team. And apparently, all these players on screen at the moment are the same age, but you can see that they're not the same physically. This is such a bad image, and I apologize for putting it in my presentation. And I don't even know if it's accurate, but it highlights the point that maybe at a young age, physical maturity, early coordination, and the confidence that can create does create an illusion of talent. Because in my experience, coaches often mistake early developers for long-term top players. But youth development is non-linear. Kids progress at different rates. And often by adolescence, late bloomers have caught up or even surpassed early stars. So the best players at 6, 7, and 8 years old are not the best players by adolescence. And the truth at these younger ages is that children born in the first 3 months of the year can have greater stature, they can have greater body mass, they can have a faster 10-meter sprint time, they can jump higher. So it's no surprise then that children born in the first 3 months of the year have a higher prevalence to stand out amongst their peers, and they're the ones that often progress into academy football. And I was shown this slide on my B license module. It's the relative age effect, and the relative age effect is a bias in youth football that sees players born earlier in the year or earlier in the selection period having a major advantage over their younger peers. And you can see by the image that that bias does not exist in the general population. So in the general population part of the image, you can see that the split's quite even amongst people who are born in the first 3 months versus the second 3 months versus the next 3 months versus the last 3 months of the year. But it does exist in the academy football population. And I think this is just in Scotland. You can see that almost 50% of academy players in Scotland are born in the first 3 months of the year. So that early selection bias can lead to overcoaching of early developers, because that player standing out, that player looks like a superstar, so they get the extra coaching. And that happens inside and outside of academies, in my opinion. And it can lead to undercoaching or exclusion of late developers because they don't look as good and they're not going to be a superstar. So why would you waste your time coaching them or even getting extra coaching for them from a parent's point of view? It does lead to burnout and pressure on star players who plateau by 12, 13, 14 years old. And it's created a system where potential is judged far too early, and we're losing long-term talent because of that, in my opinion. Because that doesn't play out when we get to senior football. The higher percentage of players who make it into senior football in Scotland are born in the second half of the year. So a better way to think about development is to focus on the process and not the outcome. You know, because at age 8, you're growing habits. You're not the final product. And everyone in football deserves a chance to play and grow and get better. And your environment is key to that. So for me, it's not necessarily thinking about players being the best players when they grow up at age 6, 7, 8 years old. It's about creating the best environment so any 6, 7, 8-year-old can become the best version of themselves by 18 years old. Okay, next myth, 3 more to go. Kids don't want to win. I think a lot of adults now think that, and I'm not sure why, but a lot of people say to me, kids don't want to win. But for me, the word win is always talked about in an adult context. From an adult point of view, you know, it's the score line. Your under 8 team could just kick the ball as long as possible, bypass midfield, score loads of goals and win the game. And that could be a win. I know lots of coaches and parents who would be happy with that. But on the flip side, you know, I know a lot of coaches who will run into players from other teams in their own organization or from other clubs. And the first 2 questions the coach will ask the young player is, did you have a game at the weekend? And if the young player says yes, the second question the coach or the adult will ask is, did you win? And I feel that second question should be, how do you feel you played? And that player could have played amazing and their team could get beat. That's a win for the player though. And if they didn't play amazing and they say they didn't play amazing, it's an opportunity to ask why they think that and to let them reflect, which is also a win. But in terms of the scoreline itself, of course, kids want to win. They just don't want it in the same way adults do. Adults are talking about the scoreline in a youth football game days after the game, and young players have forgotten the score 10 minutes after the game. Kids don't want to and should not be defined by the scoreline. But we as adults cannot get away from the scoreline. And I don't think we can. I think that's right, but there needs to be a balance because we can't swing too far away from healthy competition because we are in danger of creating sterile environments with no stakes. And if we constantly tell kids it's not about winning, well, everything around them is. If they're in leagues, if their selection is based on that, if their praise is based on that, that tells them otherwise. So coaches and adults can be conscious of the scoreline. They can use it as an opportunity to teach resilience, sportsmanship, handling pressure, to ask players why they think the scoreline it turned out the way it was and how that player performed in the game. But for me, it should not be the sole focus. So in my experience, kids do care about winning, and that's okay. It gives them purpose, it gives them motivation. So the job of the coach is not to remove competition, but it's to help kids understand that winning is not the major number one priority. It's to compete with joy. It's to win and lose with class. It's to stay focused on learning and not just the result. It's to ask, how did you play instead of did you win? It's to encourage meaningful games where healthy competition is also encouraged, where kids are stretched and not stressed. And the outcome of the game doesn't need to be a win. On the screen right now is a group of girls that I taught who received medals for all their hard work during the year, not for winning the league, not for how they performed on the pitch, just for working hard. And a lot of these players are still involved in football, which is a massive win for them. It's a win for me. And it's something I think we should be encouraging as we go forward as coaches and adults, because kids want to win. They just don't want to be defined by it. So we shouldn't kill their competitive spirit. We should shape it. We should not make winning the number one priority. We should make it a priority along with everything else that I've mentioned, in my opinion. Okay, next myth. One-to-one private lessons are a waste of money. This one pops up every single day on social media without fail. People online will say that it's a waste of money for players to get extra training. Some dismiss individual training as not realistic or it's just cone drills, but for me, that misses the point a little bit. I think a quality one-to-one session offers what a team environment cannot. It offers targeted feedback, it offers technical repetition, it offers individual attention, and it offers a safe space for mistakes. For me, it's not the format that's the problem. The format can help players understand what they need to know in different areas of the pitch, depending if they're attacking, depending if they're defending, depending on what's happening. Are they building the attack? Are they creating the attack? Are they finishing the attack? That then defines where the opponent might be in relation to the phase of the game. So coaches need to judge one-to-one work through the lens of match realism. And if I had a player who wanted a one-to-one and their club was playing them mainly as a defender, I would think about how they would need to use the ball and the kind of pressure they would face 1v1. If they're building the attack, for example, then they would probably receive the ball from the goalkeeper and they would face pressure from the side from a pressing striker or face-to-face if a midfielder jumps out to press them. And I would need to then think about that player's passing options or their dribbling options from there. And for me, they would have three simple choices. They would need to use their inside foot or outside foot to turn 90 degrees to pass back to the goalkeeper, or they would need to use the same move to turn 180 degrees to protect the ball and pass it across to their centre half partner, or they could even turn the opposition player 360 degrees to go forward to protect and hide the ball, or they could use a face-to-face skill to beat that player ahead of them. So I would like them to practice their cuts and their face-to-face moves, completely unopposed, pressure-free, And then I would talk to them about things like hiding the ball, keeping the ball on the safe side, increasing your speed coming out of a move. And then we would move into applying those skills after receiving the ball and the options available to them during a game scenario. I think you get the picture. It's technical refinement in game situations to build confidence in shy, struggling, or even advanced players. And it's not a waste of money if it's done right. But at the end of the day, even if it's not done right, it's up to the paying customer how they spend their money. The coach working with that player may not be the best coach, but they may be a fantastic person that's giving that young player confidence and getting that young player some added exercise or extra exercise. And the paying customer knows what they're getting for the money. And I think context is key. So it's not about cones, it's not about chaos, it's about context. You know, a great one-to-one coach builds players who thrive when the game gets real. And it might be money well spent from the parent, even if the session doesn't look that great from the outside in. So for me, it's not a waste of money, depending on what you are getting. Okay, last one. We, the coaching community, are simplifying coaching. And I think a lot of people think we're simplifying coaching for both players and coaches, other coaches. And I think in reality, we're often doing the opposite. We're making coaching more complicated, more performative, more theoretical. We're drowning in buzzwords. We're battling over session design. We're obsessing over frameworks. And we're sometimes forgetting that coaching is a human craft. We've made it feel like unless you're quoting a research paper or designing an elite level rondo, you're not a real coach. And I think a lot of new coaches are feeling intimidated. They're not feeling inspired. They're drowning in information that's conflicting. And even experienced coaches have become overwhelmed by trends rather than grounded in principles. And have we reached the point where some coaches are more concerned about how they look rather than how they coach? Don't know. But it's becoming more and more common to see social media flooded with buzzwords and complex session diagrams and elaborate tactics that, while sounding impressive, I think they missed the mark. They missed the mark for both players and they missed the mark for coaches as well. And football associations and organizations are not helping when they bring out things like this. I mean, I saw this the other day and it might make sense to someone, but it's not bringing any sort of clarity to the situation. And simplicity is a superpower. The best coaches make complex ideas feel accessible, relevant, and actionable. And great coaching is simple. It's just built on clarity. It's built on connection. It's built on care. It's not built on jargon or judgment. As youth coaches, do we care what Arsenal and PSG are doing? Don't know, maybe. Maybe that's the level we want to see ourselves at, and it's the level we want to see our players perform at. But all I see online is talk about what Arteta is doing or Enrique is doing tactically from coaches at different levels. In reality, only Arteta and Enrique and the respective staff know what they're doing tactically. Everyone else is guessing. And I don't need to coach my team in the same style as them, because anyone who's designing session plans based on elite teams and selling those session plans doesn't have the full picture. They're not in that inner circle. They don't have the idea of the intent. What's the session designed to combat an opponent doing? Is the session being designed to combat one opponent who's doing something strange in the press or attacks in a strange manner? That's one opponent maybe out of 20 league teams. And now coaches have taken that session and they're running it with their 14-year-olds as one of the principles. I don't know. I think there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of overcomplication of a simple sport. And I just go back to some of my key messages that I've already stated today. That success in youth football is when players still love the game at 18 and they're better for having played it. And that comes from clarity, consistency, fun, joy, constant skill acquisition. Coaches aren't useless. They just need help. You don't know what you don't know. And if a coach is needing help at the moment, there's not a lot of clarity online to give them that help, even from associations. And your environment and your player needs are yours, and you should do what's best for them and not what the latest trend is on social media or the latest dogma advice about opposed or unopposed. And it's about creating the best environment so that any 6, 7, 8-year-old can become the best version of themselves, at 18 years old. And is the overcomplication that is coaching these days achieving these aims? I don't know. I don't have the evidence, but it can't be. It cannot be, because real coaching isn't about showing off. It's about showing up. It's about not having an ego. It's about having more impact, and it's about simplifying the game with clarity. Because at the moment, we, the coaching community, I feel, are not simplifying coaching. If we do that, if we simplify with clarity, that one thing, players will love us just for that one simple thing alone, in my opinion. Okay, just to close, and I have whizzed through that maybe a bit too quick. Again, I'm just conscious that the football's on in 15 minutes. All the information that you've seen today is taken from the 360 TFT game model course. I created that course right now because, as I said earlier on, one of the biggest problems I see in youth football is the rise of disconnected training plans posted online. There's no clarity, there's no consistency with them. And again, we all mean well, we download these sessions, we tweak a few things, and then we run those sessions with our players, hoping it fits. We then, run a different session the next week in the hope that everything connects together, but it often doesn't. That course gives you a model, it gives you a framework that you can trust. It takes away the guesswork, and it replaces it with the clarity that I've mentioned several times. It's what to teach, when to teach it, and how to make sure it sticks. That course is available on the community. And there's a few other things on the screen there, but are there any questions? I've not been monitoring the chat. And I know the Europa League final is on, so no offense if you just want to drop off and watch that. Hopefully you found it useful. If you do have any questions, just stick them in the chat. I'm happy to hang about. No questions so far. If there are no questions, that's fine. I'll drop off myself and I'll get myself the Marco, you have your hand up, but I'm not sure I can unmute you because of the settings. Let me try. Yeah, you should be able to unmute now.
Hello? You hearing me? No? Hello, you hear me?
Slightly, Marco. You might have to speak up a bit louder.
Okay. I'm agree with I think anything you were saying. Sorry for my English. It's not my main language, and I'm at the first year of coaching, and I had the problem in my I have a problem this year in programming the sessions. So I try to coach in an ecological way, like a lot of opposed drills, not unopposed. I try to let them play a lot. I'm coaching an under 12 female football team, and which are your suggestion to have a good program of the learning? Because like I tried to start with a lot of 1v1 because I saw that they lack a lot of these skills. They just they were sorry afraid of the opponent, and so they just pass the ball or throw it out. So I try to do this in the first month, but I think that I lose the focus in the others. So in a group like the mine, where was a small group with 5 in 14, that was at the first year of football, first ever. I just try to let them play a lot, and they enjoy it. When I try to go a bit deeper in football, like individual tactics, they were a bit bored. So I was like, oh no, I'm not doing a good job, but I don't know. What do you think about it? Sorry, I was a bit long, but
That's okay, Marco. Thank you for the question. I think that so your environment is your environment. You know the stage that your players are at. What I would say is that if you play small-sided games and you do 1v1 work with them, then I think the majority of the time that's fine.
okay.
But you cannot teach them tactics unless they can master the basics. So if they cannot control the ball, pass the ball, and beat someone 1v1 or defend, then it's very difficult to teach them tactics. I think so. But the most important advice is you cannot do one session and teach them one concept, and then the next week do another session, another concept, the week after another session, another concept, and just go from different topic to different topic. You need to circle back and repeat topics every 3 or 4 weeks, so that way they can learn, forget, learn, forget, and every time they learn and forget, it solidifies the learning in their head. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and it was the problem. I think oh, well,
That's okay. Someone unmuted.
yeah. It's a bit okay. Thank you. Yeah, I think that I missed a bit of clarity. I think that like I'm judging like I watched the past and I'm judging, no? So it's easier. But when I was in the process, I had problems to understand this. So thank you, because you gave me another confirmation of my thinking. You know, if you just think from yourself is hard, because in my the team that I coach have not a good structure, not coach developed, and so I was a bit alone, and it was hard to talk with some other in the staff.
Marco, if you message me after this call on Twitter or wherever you have access to, then I'll send you some stuff to help you out.
Okay, thank you. I can message like, okay, on Twitter. I follow you, so I can on Twitter.
Message me and I'll send you some stuff.
Thank you.
Thomas has put in the chat that, yeah, I mean, yeah, I completely agree. Ever since COVID, most of the coach education courses moved online, which has been fantastic for organizations and associations to increase their income. But I think that we're missing a trick with the on-pitch coach education now. It's not as structured. And even then, as I said earlier on, there's organizations, clubs will just send coaches to an association run course and expect that coach to be a fully qualified coach. And in the absence of information and clarity, then what else are you going to do apart from look online for help? And again, it's not structured, which is why I started my community. So I feel your pain because I've been there myself, and it's been a number of years since I started coaching, and it has not improved. I think it's actually got worse. Any other questions? No more questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. I think we can all go and watch the football now. I will make a recording available afterwards. I realize I went really, really fast throughout the presentation. Again, I didn't want to keep anyone beyond 8 p.m. So thank you very much for attending. I'll end the call now, and I will catch you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.